my name is Dr. Deidre Hayes, Professor of Practice at TSSW, and along with me is Dr. Reginald Parquet, a clinical professor here in the School of Social Work, and Carrie Mulder, our Media Outreach Coordinator. As you guys know, pre-COVID, the School of Social Work hosted a monthly in-person health fair, providing information and services to the individuals who use the corridor to access downtown New Orleans. The partners provided STD testing, dental screenings, and assessments for substance abuse and mental illness. In addition, the Health Spot served to provide information on housing, voting, and multiple services available to the community. Although COVID interrupted our in-person service delivery, we continue to provide webinars to address current systemic issues facing our community. Today's topic is on families. We're going to highlight the importance.
I don't know why the link wouldn't let me in. All right, I'm on.
Excellent. We're going to highlight the topic is families and children, attachment, trauma, and resilience. Brianna Anderson, co-founder of Daughters Beyond Incarceration, will talk about the effect of children when a parent is removed from their lives because of incarceration. She will share information about the innovative program that was created by she and Chabre Johnson to address this unique population's needs. Chabre Johnson, Regional Director of YEP Mentors, will talk about the program she manages at the Youth Empowerment Project. She will talk about the specific issues her population faces and the need for such programs in the NOLA community. And finally, Dr. Danielle Wright, trauma specialist, will talk about the issues of attachment and trauma that affect young people in each of these programs. We want to take this time to celebrate families and acknowledge the fact that we as a society are responsible for our children and our young people. We encourage you to continue to address the systemic issues that adversely affect our families on a daily basis. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our first panelist, Brianna Anderson. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, it's Bree, it's not Brianna, I'm sorry. It's okay. I'm Bree Anderson, I'm the co-founder of Daughters Beyond Incarceration. We advocate for children of incarcerated parents and girls specifically when incarcerated fathers, but we do have girls in our program now that has incarcerated mothers in the program. Our goal is to implement policies to create rights for children of incarcerated parents across Louisiana. Just a brief introduction, right? That's it.
Yes, Bree. Tell us a little bit about your process and how you came up with the idea to start Daughters Beyond Incarceration.
DBI was started by myself and Chabre Johnson in 2018. When we started our organization, we had 2 mentees enrolled, and our goal was to mentor the girls, support them, and help them navigate life while their parent was incarcerated. How I got into the work is because I'm 28 now, and my father was sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 121 years in Angola for crimes he did not commit. He went to prison in April of 1992, and my family kind of lost hope because after a few years of him being incarcerated, they just knew he was gonna come home because he didn't commit the crime. And my mom was expecting with me when my dad went away to prison. So I met him for the first time behind bars. Throughout those years, it was very challenging and traumatizing because I had to try to figure out how to save some conversations for my dad to help me with questions I had, if it was math problems, if it was something for school, or if it was just issues that I had to, even if I got over it already, I had to kind of reiterate it and bring it back up when I do talk to my dad, because I couldn't call him. I had to wait until he called me. And those calls only for 10 or 15 minutes. And sometimes you don't want to just talk about a problem that you're having for 10 or 15 minutes because you're so excited to talk to him. So my dad ended up serving 23 and a half years for wrongful conviction before he was released by the Innocent Project of New Orleans in 2015. he wasn't exonerated until 2017 because at the time the DA wanted him to still say that he committed some of the crimes because they didn't want to say they messed up. But he was exonerated, all the charges were dropped, and my dad still had on an ankle monitor. He still was on probation and parole. So I quit my job at Walgreens in a pharmacy because every time I got off of work at 8 or 9 o'clock, my dad had to be back inside around the same time. So the whole process was, it was extremely hard for me. And I think the process, like starting to work at the age of 14 to help not only put money on my dad's books, but to just get extra things that I wanted and to help my mom out with my younger siblings, because one income, minimum wage income that she had in the household, it wasn't enough. And I understood that as a kid, and I still carry that with me as an adult because I had to teach my dad things that he never was able to teach me once he was released. And a lot of people ask me why I'm doing the work that I'm doing now, and my father is home. My family is reunited, and I know what it takes for my father and my mom to help reunite a family from behind bars and also on the outside. But I also know what it's like when I walk up to my dad, even to today, and I have to announce that I'm there because he get into defense mode from being incarcerated so long and not knowing if, it's a survival thing. So it's a lot of things that you can't say on paper. So I'm doing this work for girls who struggled in school and didn't announce that there was a child of incarcerated parent. And also because I didn't know children of incarcerated parents was a thing until I went to a conference about 2 years ago. And I never really met no one, like with my story. I met people who had parents that went to prison for something they a crime they committed, and it doesn't change anything. It's just like my circumstances changed me and made me different because I knew my father was in prison for something he didn't do. And it's the outcome. I'm advocating for children of incarcerated parents and also the caregivers. You can't forget about the caregivers because we have to help these girls and mentor them, but we also have to help advocate for the caregivers and help them become advocates, which is why we just passed a law recently last year. Louisiana Act 284, which creates a council for all children of incarcerated parents and caregivers across Louisiana to include their voices in all the issues that they face throughout being a child of incarcerated parent.
That is phenomenal, Bree. I appreciate you sharing your story with us. And I'm sure we're going to have many questions for you as this program progresses. I just think the work that you guys do is excellent. How many girls do y'all have now?
We have 87 girls registered with us. We've been doing a lot of virtual programming. We've been getting back into like in-person programming, but it's kind of been a struggle because of transportation, of course, COVID. But we have 87 girls registered, and our goal is to do more enrichment and recreational things through the summer to kind of increase our participants in the program. And the goal is to increase girls in like different parishes, because I understand the need for DBI, especially because there's so many jails, not only in New Orleans, but outside of New Orleans and other parishes in Louisiana. So I want to reach other girls, not only in those parishes, but they have people on the West Bank that doesn't know about DBI. So I think the goal for the summer is to like just increase awareness around, marketing and stuff to kind of bring other girls, because I know what it's like to be forgotten or left out of conversations.
Absolutely. So as you guys heard, the Daughters Beyond Incarceration not only works with the individual girls, but they also work on a macro level to deal with issues of policies and laws as it relates to the individuals they serve. So thank you, Bree. We'll have other questions for you in a few. Thank you. Next up is Chabre Johnson, who is the Program Director for Mentors at Youth Empowerment Project.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. Yes, my name is Chabre Johnson, and I am a clinical social worker, but I'm also the Regional Director for Youth Empowerment Project's mentoring program. And if you allow, I'm gonna share my screen just to provide some information for you all. Let's see if I can figure it out.
All right, you should be able to. Yep, there we go. Looking
There we
good.
go. Awesome.
Great.
All right. So just a little bit about Youth Empowerment Project. So we've been around since 2004, providing services to young people in the Orleans area. We provide mentoring, adult education, employment readiness, training, and after-school enrichment programming for young people ranging between the ages of 7 and 24. On an average, we touch about 1,000 young people a year. And YEP came into existence to provide, like I said, mentoring services. And we also had one of the first reentry programs in Orleans Parish. So just to show you a little bit of background about the different programs that we offer at YEP, our services are divided into 4 different kind of buckets of service. The first is YEP Educates. So that is formerly the GED. Now it's called HighSet. So that is the high school equivalency that we provide for young people between the ages of 16, and there's no upper age range. So anybody over the age of 16 that has dropped out of a traditional K-12 system and they want to obtain their high school equivalency, then this is the program for them. We also help with college and financial aid applications, and we also provide basic need assistance, transportation, and HighSet testing fees. And just so everyone knows, all of the programming that we offer at YEP is free. None of the participants have to pay for any of the services that we offer, which is a benefit for the community. Another program that we have is our YEP Enriches Program. And under this umbrella, we provide arts, music, and recreational after-school programming for youth ages 7 to 18. We also offer our 6-week summer camp program for youth who are between the ages of 7 and 12. And then in addition to that, we have an overnight camp for young people between the ages of 9 and 12 who are impacted by substance abuse of a family member, either current or previous abuse. And we do that every other month. And then we also provide activities and services in between the sleepaway camps. And again, that's open to the community. Anybody can apply. Then we also have our YEP Works program. And that is an 8-week paid training program in customer service and social emotional learning. So YEP operates a bike shop, and we also have a thrift store, if you've seen it on Aretha Castle Haley, and that is operated by our young people, and it's offered to kids between the ages of 16 and 24. So that way they are getting some on-the-job training, some hands-on training, interacting with the community, operating the point of sale. And then they also get some soft skills training. So they're learning how to do their resume, learning how to interact in an interview setting, how to dress appropriately. So all these things are being addressed, and they're also being paid a stipend while they're learning. And then last but not least is YEP Mentors, which is the program that I oversee. And this is a community-based mentoring program for youth ages 8 to 21. And these referrals are coming to us from different places. We get referrals from the Office of Juvenile Justice. We get them from FINS, which is Families in Need of Services. And then we also recently partnered with Juvenile Diversion. So these young people come to us and they are getting support from a youth advocate that is making a minimum of 3 to 5 contacts per week, depending on the need. We do individualized goal setting, assist with basic needs and transportation, and then we also incorporate group enrichment activities. So just kind of in a nutshell, this is kind of an overview of the things that we are offering currently at YEP. So the thing about our young people is that, of course, when you touch this many people on a yearly basis, you run into trauma. Most of us can't go through life or go through a day without experiencing something that is traumatic to us. So it's without even thinking that you're going to have to interact with these type of issues, right? So what is trauma? Trauma is a psychological, emotional response to an event or an experience that is deeply distressing or disturbing. So like I said, we kind of can't get through life without experiencing some form of a trauma. So then the next question becomes, well, how do we address trauma, and why do we need trauma-informed care? Trauma-informed care is defined as evidence-based practices that promote a culture of safety, empowerment, and healing. And why do we use that? Because we're attempting to not re-traumatize or cause further harm to a young person. So as an organization, as a clinical social worker, we're looking for opportunities to make young people feel safe, give them an opportunity to exist as they need to exist and go through the process of healing. And then how do we do that? How do we educate other people and on how to be trauma informed in their delivery is the question. So there are 5 core principles of trauma informed care that you want to incorporate in your service delivery. And these are things that YEP is constantly studying. We're constantly using to inform our programming. And those 5 things include being safe, having a safe environment for young people, ensuring physical and emotional safety for kids when they come into our facilities, trustworthiness, maintaining appropriate boundaries, and making tasks clear. When you are experiencing trauma or when you are a trauma survivor, you go through different situations to where things change. There's no consistency. So making sure that young people are getting the same treatment every time they come to us, that they know that this is what I'm going to get. I don't have to guess. I don't have to worry about what I'm walking into. And providing that consistency is key to making sure that they're comfortable and that they are benefiting wholeheartedly from the things that we're trying to offer. Providing a choice, prioritizing, and you see staff in parentheses, not just consumer choice, but staff choice and control. People want to have choices. They want to have options. Having a small choice makes a huge difference to someone who may feel like that opportunity was taken away from them. So you are now making it youth focused. You're now giving them a voice. You're now giving your staff a voice who are providing services to these young people. And that helps to make sure that your organization and your service delivery is trauma informed. Then you want to have collaboration, maximizing collaboration, whether that's between you and that young person, you and the systems that that young person is involved in, partnering with their parents, partnering with other community organizations. Collaboration is necessary, right? And then empowerment, it's in our name. Prioritizing student empowerment and skill building is something that we prioritize and we hold dear to our mission and what it is that we're doing for young people. Here I threw in a chart, and I'm sure we're all familiar with, and I don't know if you guys can see this fully. The last year has been tough for all of us. It's also been tough for the young people that we serve. It's been tough on our staff. And these are just some statistics showing adults who have reported symptoms of anxiety disorder or depressive disorder in the last year. So with Corona happening, with things being closed down, with us being disconnected from trusting people and trusting places, you can see the number has risen from 11% to 41.1%. And that's what we're working with right now. This is what we as a group, everybody on this panel is working against and what we're trying to kind of combat. So what did YEP do during COVID? What are some of the challenges that we faced? We partnered with local restaurants to provide hot catered meals to families during the pandemic. Families were trusting enough and open enough to let us know that they were struggling. Staff were struggling. Everybody was kind of going through their own thing, right? So we partnered and we went out and we put our mask on. We social distanced, but we were able to provide that basic need for families. We made self-care packages and we delivered them. Just like our young people were struggling, our parents were struggling. So we made separate bags for parents and made sure to include them because you want to address the family as a whole and not just the one person that you're working with. We remained consistent and we remained transparent about what was going on and what we could realistically do. You'll be surprised how far honesty goes, how far being yourself goes. You know, people can tell when you're being honest, when you're being, just providing accurate information and not guessing or not lying. So letting them know, hey, this is where we are, this is what we can do, is reassuring to people. We taught parenting skills and social emotional learning virtually. So every program that I listed that Yet provides all went into virtual mode. So we had to pivot. We had to pivot with the times. We eliminated barriers to technology and provided educational support. So we provided computers, we provided hotspots to families so that they cannot fall short of being connected to the things that they needed to work as parents and for kids to be able to connect to education. And this stood out in just kind of things that I've been reading over the last couple of months. A trauma survivor is on a continuum from feeling overwhelmed to overcoming. You know, they're constantly going back and forth between one or the other. And it's our job as clinicians, it's our job as people who are trying to be trauma informed to meet them where they are and try to pull that pendulum as far right as possible, right? And helping them overcome the things that they go through. So that's just a little bit about who we are as an organization, the things that we're aiming towards and hopefully achieving with our families. And yeah, so that's it. I appreciate you all following me along on my little presentation.
Thank you, Chabre. We really appreciate it. Chabre is a phenomenal social worker here in New Orleans, and I like to brag on her because I think she is excellent at everything she does in the field of social work, and she demonstrates what it means to be committed to the work you do. So I just want to say thank you. Next up, we have Dr. Wright, Dr. Danielle Wright.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle, or Dr. Danielle Wright. I rarely go as that, but we're in a professional setting. So I'm Dr. Danielle Wright. Really excited to be joining this call with this health spot with you all today. I'm actually a 3-time graduate of Tulane University. So I went to the School of Social Work twice, got my MSW from there, and also my doctorate of social work. And I received my master's of public health from Tulane. So really excited to join you all today. And much of the educational experience that I received really in my MSW program, and I would say a lot of it with the doctoral studies as well, is what helped to shape my career pathways. So I'm really excited to be on. So Navigate NOLA is actually the child well-being division of a larger organization called the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice Incorporated. So our child well-being division was cultivated in 2016 by myself. I'm the founding director. I wrote a grant to the Kellogg Foundation to be able to provide social and emotional learning integration into academic settings across public schools in New Orleans. And really what I was seeing at that particular time, and I'll just step back a little bit, I went into social work during the time of post-disaster recovery following Hurricane Katrina, and I was called to the work because I was recognizing firsthand the elevated levels of post-traumatic stress disorder and depression that young people were experiencing, and I felt really called to the work. I was working as a public health practitioner in the city's health department at the time, and actually called Tulane School of Social Work at the last minute wanting to apply and had missed the application deadline. And I begged the admissions coordinator at the time to please, like, is there anything you can do? I know I missed it by a day. Is there somebody that can look? And she was like, I don't know, let me see what I can do. And so she called me back the next day and said, look, I was able to push your application through and you got in. And so I ended up leaving my job at the health department and starting the MSW program like 2 months later. So I feel, I feel like I was called to the work because of what I was seeing firsthand with young people experiencing elevated levels of PTSD and depression following Hurricane Katrina. So Navigate NOLA's division was cultivated because of the challenges that were happening post-disaster recovery. And the focus was on social and emotional learning, seeing that as a healing interaction intervention that can address adverse childhood experiences, toxic stress, which is what we see when buffers to toxic stress, healing interactions or supports that normally serve as a buffer to adverse childhood experiences are being removed, right? And so those things are happening because of gentrification, for example, when we start to see Native neighborhoods in New Orleans where families have lived across generations being pushed out of those Native neighborhoods, when children are experiencing adverse childhood experiences, such as what Bree described, having an incarcerated parent. When gentrification happens, those communities that were comprised of caring adults that could step into the lives of children, when those things are being disrupted, those are protective factors that are being removed, and that allows toxic stress to set in. And also trauma. These were the things that were sort of undergirding the idea behind being able to integrate social and emotional learning into academic settings. And so at Navigate NOLA, we do this work across 4 interconnected areas. Those areas are direct services, training and professional development, policy and advocacy, and research and evaluation. We are pretty widely known for our direct services, and so that is our SONOLA project. And so through the SONOLA project, we actually partner with schools, New Orleans Public Schools, and we go into the schools and provide social and emotional learning interventions for 1 hour a week for the duration of 7 months. And so it's a classroom-based intervention. And the reason that we decided to go with a classroom-based intervention was because I had worked as a social worker at a school, and I saw the pushback that I would get from parents when I would need them to sign off on consent to allow me to work with their children. There was a lot of stigmatization around getting mental health support and not wanting social workers such as myself to know what was going on in the family's household. And so there was a lot of resistance, and I couldn't provide many young people with the support that was necessary to set them up for success. And so because of that, the approach that I decided to take with Navigate NOLA was to design a classroom-based intervention where all the students in the class were getting the skill set that they needed to be set up to have successful outcomes in life. And that was to expand their emotional intelligence, which is something that is buildable and teachable. It is not something that's set like your IQ. We just come here with an IQ, but your emotional intelligence, it is buildable and teachable, and we can expand it. So we do that through self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. So if you think back to the person in, say, for example, your high school who graduated as valedictorian, and you saw that person as super smart, that is probably not the most successful person in your class. Typically, the most successful people are highly emotionally intelligent. So we saw this as a way to integrate this into academic settings so that we could help children navigate through many of the different challenges that they were having and to develop the skill set that could be used across the lifespan. So we go into schools for an hour a week, and we have 3 different centers that we rotate across for our social and emotional learning intervention. So the kids who learn in different ways all have the opportunity to shine. So we have a direct skills center that follows a curriculum that I created, and it's based on the grade level. And then we have a yoga, mindfulness, and meditation center. And then we have a technology center that reinforces the skills using a computer lab sort of setting. And so many of the kids who are into technology and learn better that way also have that opportunity, and they rotate across those 3 centers. So through our SONOLA project, we have worked with probably 1,500 students across 9 schools. And in addition to that, we do this work on the training and professional development level to expand teachers, school-based mental health professionals, and community-based organizations that serve youth. We do training and professional development to expand their capacity to work with vulnerable youth. And we have worked with probably over 1,000 early childhood educators, teachers, school-based mental health professionals, and individuals who work in community-based organizations that serve youth. So we recognize that that's a really important component. We understand that the adults that interface with young people, their well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of young people. So that's an important component of our work as well. The other part of our work that these interconnected areas also falls through is our infant mental health work. And I became very interested in attachment theory and the ways in which our early childhood experiences shape who we are and how we interact with the world around us. I became interested in that when I was an MSW student at Tulane. And because of my interest, I had the opportunity to get an infant mental health certification from LSU's Department of Child Psychiatry. And so our infant mental health division, we go into Head Start centers and we provide relationship-based therapy to young children and their parents. Understanding that a very young child's behavioral issues are the symptom of something going on within the context of the family. And so that is the way that we are able to work with the family, work through these issues through relationships. And so we do infant mental health consultations. We've served probably like 10 Head Start centers through that work. We've trained over 12 early childhood educators through our infant mental health work. And so that continues to be a very important part of our programming. And then finally, and very importantly, I always make sure that I elevate the important work of the Collaborative for African American Girls and Women. So that is an entity that's comprised of 5 organizations that serve African American girls. And through the Collaborative, we pull together resources because funding for African American programs that target African American girls in the city of New Orleans, it's grossly underfunded. Across the Southeastern region, less than 1% of foundation funded is allocated to that target population. And so along with Navigate NOLA, along with Daughters Beyond Incarceration, the Orchid Society, Project Butterfly, NOLA, and the Beautiful Foundation, we all come together and pull our resources together so that we can better meet the needs of young African-American girls or adolescent African-American girls in the city. We've done collective impact evaluations. We have done photo voice projects. We have done a lot of direct services, training and professional development, all of those things. And so we continue to do this work across the interconnected areas that I just discussed. And primarily our focus is on social and emotional learning, infant mental health, and the Collaborative for African American Girls and Women.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wright. And I want to say thank you to all 3 of these outstanding women who presented today. I don't usually engage in labeling, but I do want to label the 3 of you. I want to label you all as superheroes for the work that you're doing in our community to enhance the lives of individuals who need that help the most. And to just kind of kick off our conversation about y'all's presentation, I want to begin with a question from Ms. Anderson. And I'd like to ask this question. What types of systemic changes or policy changes should happen in the Louisiana penal system that would not only enhance but maintain the connection between an incarcerated parent and their children and families? What should happen, in the state prisons to make sure that we strengthen, enhance, and certainly maintain the connection between incarcerated parents and their children and families?
I would say first I'll say implementing programs like Navigate NOLA, Daughters Beyond Incarceration, and other grassroots organizations that help enhance the lives of the children and also the caregivers. So we have a family reunification program in DBI where we work with the incarcerated loved one and their daughter, right? So if we know this guy is coming home, a mother, whoever is coming home within the next 2 years or so, 6 months, then we're working with both of them. So if we partner with Dr. Danielle, right, whoever we partner with to work with the girl mental health piece, even if it's like a curriculum that we're working on, we use the same curriculum. We have a curriculum that's for the caregivers, the mentees, and the incarcerated loved ones. So we let them work on the same thing at the same time. So they kind of connected, not only with us, but they connect them with each other, so they know how to work with each other and bond with each other outside of while the parent is on the inside and the child is on the outside, and helping to bridge the communication gap. That's our overall mission, is to bridge the communication gap between a parent and their child while they're incarcerated, because I see what it does to some families. I have a friend whose parent was incarcerated only for like 2.5 years, and their relationship is like tarnished because she didn't really have a relationship with him before he went to prison. So the time he was like in and out of prison, I think 2.5 years was his longest bid. He just was always in and out of prison. And she always asked me, like, how come you and your daddy have this great relationship? And he was gone 23 years. You wasn't even born. But I always give kudos to my mother. She made sure that we maintained that relationship because she didn't have a program like DBI to assist her. So she was the DBI before DBI was even thought about. Mama made sure we maintained that relationship. My dad helped me with homework over the phone, you know, simple things. We try to find stuff in common. Because that's the whole thing. Like, if you feel like you have something in common with someone, it's easier to trust them, right? So we maintained that relationship by staying in communications. I wrote letters to him, and sometimes the letters got so hard. So when they came out with JPEG, it was so amazing. Like, I was able to like text my dad through the email, and send pictures, even though it cost a lot of money, but just different ways, trying to be creative. The only thing I regretted was when he came home, everything just got deleted. So I don't have a lot of memories of our conversations from that, but I didn't have any pictures from when I was a child because of Hurricane Katrina. So my dad was the first person to show me what I really looked like as a baby. Never saw a picture. Like, as a, you know, when I was younger, probably before Katrina, but like as an adult, I didn't know what I looked like, you know, as a child. So I think connecting families prior to the person released, not when they come home, because it's easy for that person to recidivate back into prison if you don't have that family support, because a lot of family members, you know, they fall off, you know, they don't know how to communicate with you, especially knowing that you're going to be there for 3 life sentences. Sometimes people just like lose hope, not to intentionally want to like break their relationship or the bond, but sometimes even like my dad, he said that he used to get mail a lot. He used to get so much mail that other guys in the prison, they just wanted to get his mail and read it just to feel like they had mail coming in. So I think just having that constant communication, like educating the kids on the importance, not really pressuring them, but even like finding something in common. Like, if your dad is drawing this week, you should do the same. Just trying to find some type of way for them to connect so it's easier for when they're released. Because when my dad came out, we already had the bond, but on the way from him coming home, I'm like, what the first place he won't eat at? Of course, he wanted Popeyes, but we ended up going to Burger King because the line was too long. But we maintained that relationship for all that time. And when he got in the car, got close to me, I backed up. I was so scared because nobody trained me and told me, like, you know, that in less than 72 hours, your dad gonna be released. Like, nobody mentally prepared me for that. And I think I still struggle with that to this day, because sometimes I still, like, we stayed in the same house and I do this to myself constantly to like try to see if it's really real, you know, because it was so long and I wanted to keep graduating and keep accomplishing things until my dad was able to, you know, to make it to something. But I think connecting with people who are formerly incarcerated, I think those are the most resilient individuals. So grassroots organization, people who have lived experiences as formerly incarcerated, and also the caregiver and, like, you know, the family members in the community. It don't take people who go to school for, you know, 12 to 15 years to talk to a family and be a mediator. You have to use lived experiences and kind of like remove credentials and be able to like use the experience to be like a tool to get them to the other side, because it's so many people. And I'm like, damn, I wish I could help them, you know, but I'm doing the work now. So I try to help reunify as many families as I could in Louisiana.
Bree, I just want to add one thing. I want you to tell the audience about the letter writing campaign that you guys did when you partnered with Southern University.
Oh, that was powerful. And we're doing it again. So I have everyone here. We're having a Father's Day event. We'll be releasing this save the date early next week, probably Monday or Tuesday. It's a Father's Day event we do every year to honor like incarcerated fathers, or just fathers in general, grandfathers, just parents in general. The event we had prior to the pandemic, we had Southern University Law Center reach out to our dads, like all of the girls' dads who's in the program, and like granddads, because some of the girls in the program are just growing up fatherless. So that's one of our programs, growing up fatherless, whether your parent is deceased and been released or just like, absent from the girls' life. So it was a growing up fatherless campaign, and they reached out to the dads and wrote them some questions or whatever, and they responded to it. And the letters was so powerful. It was so powerful. One girl who has a mother that's incarcerated, her mother wrote a letter, and she said the letter didn't move her from what her mother said, but she didn't think her mom was that intelligent, because people tell her, that people who are incarcerated belligerent, like they don't know anything. They're not intelligent. They don't know how to read. They don't know how to write. And she just graduated high school last year, and she has this quote, and it says, it's common for a father to be incarcerated, but for a mother to be incarcerated, the person who you're first given to when you're born is not common, so that always stick with me. I think about that every day, because as much as like I miss my dad, I couldn't imagine if my mom was incarcerated. They read the letters, and it was the families of so we had like 35 letters that was sent back to us, and we requested like the family for whoever that person was to be at our event, and we just read the letters, and there was so many emotions in there, but it was good emotions. People, it was like a good type of sad, but just to include their voices. It wasn't to like re-traumatize anyone. It's just to include the voices of the people, because I don't think it's no work DBI can do without the voices of the whole unit of the family, because it wouldn't be a DBI if my dad, wasn't incarcerated, or Dominique's dad wasn't incarcerated. So we try to include their voices and let them know that, it's public information. So like just, you could include whatever you want in the letter. And they did it. They participated, and their girls were so excited. So we made copies of the letter. We have the original, because I think there's some powerful letters. So we're doing it again this year, but we won't read them this year. I think we'll have it kind of like displayed. So we'll be releasing the save the date soon. Our event will be at Studio B this year, so I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this very, very important work. And I think it's clear to all of us that your dedication, your commitment, your passion for this work is very, very obvious. And we want you to continue to do that. And we want you to draw upon the community, the academic community, to continue to help support your endeavors as well.
Definitely.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson? The head of YEP, programs of education, programs of mentorship, programs of work and entrepreneurship, programs that address trauma that many of our citizens have experienced.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, y'all cover it all. And I have to also agree with Dr. Hayes that you truly reflect what it means to be a professional social worker. And we want to commend you for that.
Thank you.
So Ms. Anderson mentioned the word resilience. So how is that word applicable to the work that you do in terms of the client's relationship with the program?
Yeah. Well, the thing that I try to remind people of is that our young people and our families are experts of their own lives. They were surviving 100% of the days before they got to us, and they'll survive 100% of the days after they leave from us. But in that time that they're with us, it's our job to do the important work, right? It's our job to equip them with the tools necessary to be self-sufficient. And what we're doing, honestly, is planting seeds. You know, we are putting things down, we are instilling things in them, we are being repetitive with things that we're doing to show consistency and show trust, build those relationships, to get them to trust us and to digest and take in the things that we're providing for them. A lot of times we aren't around to see that come to fruition. You know, we'll be lucky to see a young person actually achieve or get to the point that we need them to get to while we're with them. But we do those things in good faith, thinking that, you know, at one day we may bump into them on the street and they are 25 or 30 and they say, Ms. Johnson, I remember when you kept telling me and kept telling me and kept telling me. I didn't get it then, but I got it now, you know, and they have become successful and they have their own families and things like that. So even though we are all professional on here and we have the credentials, the background, the experience, they are 100% experts at who they are and what they need. And being a social worker, it is important, being any type of service provider, it's important to have the services be youth-centered or participant-centered with whatever population that you're working with, because self-determination is important. They need to have a say-so in what is being provided to them and what is being done, or there's not going to be buy-in, there's not going to be change, there's not going to be success. If you are, you know, regurgitating something that you feel is correct for this family, correct for this person, then that does not benefit them at all. You know, it's not about us. It's not about what we went through. It's not about what I survived. It's wholeheartedly about what this young person is going through, what this family is going through, and relying on them to provide the information needed to best serve them.
Again, thank you so much for that very, very powerful and important work that you're doing. And you said something that I think our listening audience should hear again. And it's important that we embrace this. The notion that our clients, our parents, our families, they are the experts on what it is they do. We're merely there to help and support them, but they are the true experts. And I commend you, Ms. Johnson, for saying that and for making that known throughout this listening audience. Continue to do that great work that you're doing. And again, you know, if the Academy of Tulane can help in any way to support the work that you're doing, do not hesitate to call upon us.
I will not.
Thank you so much. Dr. Wright, a 3 times connection with social work? That's fairly unique. And I applaud you for being engaged with the School of Social Work, the School of Public Health, all of these years, and how that helps shape the work that you're doing, the outstanding work that you're doing in the community. I'd like for you to speak to the audience a little bit about attachment and attachment theory and how that plays out in the work that you do. I might add that recently there have been some efforts to connote pejorative concepts about you know, resiliency and sometimes even attachment, but those are very, very powerful and important dynamics that our families and their workers and helpers engage in. Say a little bit more about attachment and attachment theory and resilience as well.
Yeah, sure. So attachment theory is at the heart of all of the work that we do. And just having this basic foundational understanding that within the relationship or the context of the relationship between a child, a small child and a caregiver, and in particular between the ages of 0, and I would kick it out to 6. Usually you see 0 to 5, but I go up to 6 when I think about the context of an attachment relationship. So the limitations that oftentimes children display that and the labels that they're given as very small children. You hear people say, call very young children bad, and just like there are so many negative labels that young children are given when they display problematic behavior, when they are struggling to manage their emotional distress, right? And oftentimes that has a lot to do with their inability to be able to name what the feeling that they're having. They don't have the emotional vocabulary. And so the display of what is termed as bad behavior has everything to do with that. They're learning how to manage their emotional distress. They don't quite have the language to express it. And during that time period, it is the caregiver's responsibility to help them to develop that skill set, to learn how to manage emotional distress, to be able to assign a name to what they're experiencing. We know that when we can name our feeling, and there are adults that struggle with this. If you can't name the feeling, the alarm, being able to name the feeling that you're having calms down the alarm response center of your brain. So if we can teach children how to do that when they're very young, we're actually beginning the process of them learning how to calm their body down. But when we have adults whose capacity is limited because of systemic racism, because of poverty, because of intergenerational trauma that's been passed down from one generation to the next. Their ability to be able to provide that level of support to a small child is limited because of these systemic issues that I just described, right? And so when they show up in schools and in Head Starts and they're given labels and people don't know how to work with them, the child's behavior is a symptom of a problem in the context of the relationship of the caretaker and the child. And so that is why that relationship-based work is so important. And oftentimes that's missed and people don't understand that. And so what we've been able to do by centering our infant mental health work in attachment theory is it gives us an opportunity to bring the mom or the caregiver into that relationship-based treatment. And we can focus on them and getting their capacity up to where it needs to be so that they can be an emotionally responsive caretaker. And when you do that, then you immediately start to see a shift in the behavior of the child. And then the other side of that too is that teachers and school-based mental health professionals and family advocates in these early childhood learning centers, they also provide the child with the opportunity to be emotionally responsive in the absence of a parent. And so as we work to expand their capacity, understanding that, like I said, the well-being of a child is inextricably linked to the well-being of the adults in their lives. So that's the caretaker, that's the teacher. You know, so many times you hear people who reflect on so much adversity in life that they experienced, but they were able to overcome that adversity because of factors that promote resilience, like an emotionally responsive adult. I had this teacher that really saw the best in me, you know, and those are the kind of privileges that oftentimes go missed. So you hear people tell these remarkable stories and they identify themselves as an exception to the rule, the exception to poverty or systemic racism, but they're not giving you the full picture of the privilege that they were able to have a caring, responsive adult. And that is why they were able to have this successful outcome. So the work that we're doing is we want to work with the parents, we want to work with the families, and we provide that service, but sometimes there is resistance. Sometimes there is not the ability to do that. And so because of that, we're also working to build the capacity of the other adults in their lives, because they also have the unique opportunity to set the child up for success and be an emotionally responsive adult in their life.
Thank you so much. Before we open the floor to questions from our audience, I'd like to ask kind of a systemic question, I guess, and any of you can chime in on this. We know that from the literature that 30% more children are traumatized than adults who come back to our country from wars. But the funding is geared primarily towards the adults. who are returning and not the children. What can we do to change that narrative? What can we do to enhance and increase funding to support, research and services for children who experience trauma?
I can chime in it. So somebody, I didn't want to talk over anyone.
Danielle, I think that's you.
Well, I was just going to say that I think it's going to require a paradigm shift that, us recognizing that we need to invest in children. I think about this in the context of like even education. Like, so most of the majority of the funding is allocated towards older students, but we miss the opportunity to recognize and really illuminate that kids, ages 0 to 5, like individuals working with them, that's like brain science. And so we really need to be dumping more of the funding in those early years. And I feel the same way about trauma and thinking about the missed opportunity to be able to set children up for successful outcomes so that they're not suffering on the back end. And it is, from an economic standpoint, it is more expensive if we do it the way that we're continuing to do it. But I think the point that you raised is interesting. I was looking at, I don't remember where it was, what geographic region it is, nowhere near us, but they actually have like a PTSD court, right? And so it made me think about like, why don't we have diversion courts for children that are young people that have been exposed to trauma, where we're providing them with services. What you were talking about, Dr. Parquet, also reminded me recently, and when I talk about a paradigm shift, like this is what I mean. The district attorney, we have the two kids, the 15-year-old and another young person. They're being tried as adults, right? They were attempting to carjack a woman in her 50s, a Black woman in New Orleans East, and they killed her, and they also killed her dog. It's a horrific crime. I actually cried while I was reading about it. But I do stand behind the fact that I don't believe that children should be tried as adults under any circumstances. It does not make our community any safer. And I think we also make a decision that because they participated in such a heinous crime that we just throw their life away and we say that there's no opportunity for that to change or for them to change. We just decide that they're hopeless, right? And so I think that is what I mean by a paradigm shift. Like, we have to change the way that we are thinking about things, and that's the only way. Because when I think about the campaign that our district attorney ran on, right? But like, there's a lot of pressure from his constituents around. I keep hearing people say, they asked me, I was on his transition team. They're like, what is Jason going to do about all this crime with these kids? And I said, well, he sent it back to juvenile court. What do you want them to do? And, many of my friends, they're like, well, that's not, what is juvenile court? And I'm like, this is a structure that's put in place so they can respond age appropriately. Why do you feel like children need to go to adult jail? So even progressive prosecutors across the nation that we've been seeing across, within this progressive prosecutorial movement, many of them are pivoting back to these harsh punitive consequences because they are feeling a lot of pressure from like lay community members, who don't think they're being harsh enough. And also, just overwhelmed by the burden of what we're seeing and just pivoting back to naturally what they were trained to do. So yeah, I know that I went off on a tangent, but I think it's important to think about how we need to have a paradigm shift across a lot of different areas.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad you brought that up because I was actually interviewed yesterday by Paul Dudley of WWL News. And one of the things I mentioned was that, juveniles could be better served in the juvenile justice system as it relates to rehabilitation than in an adult system. But they edited out most of the stuff I said, but at least they put that part in. So I agree with you in that regard, Dr. Wright. Look, Dr. Hayes and I want to thank you all again, you three superheroes, and commend you for the work that you're doing. And unless you all have some closing comments you'd like to make, we want to open up the questions to our audience. Thank you all very much.
I just put a comment in the chat, just to kind of piggyback off of Dr. Wright, is that we need to stop asking what's wrong with these kids and start asking what happened to these kids. And that goes along with the paradigm shift. and how we become more trauma informed on how we address things that are happening with these young people, instead of vilifying their behavior and criminalizing their behavior, and understanding that some of this is a part of their development, age appropriate development. Like some of this is just typical adolescent behavior that is being criminalized. And then also understanding that trauma has been incorporated into this young person's life at maybe at an age when they were going through attachment. And they're continuing to be exposed to it, not just from birth or not just between 0 and 6, but they're continuing to have this and are being expected to deal with it. And then it's on us as the adults, as the clinicians, as the community, as the parents, to speak up for those young people and advocate.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Ms. Johnson. Yeah, and we know from the research that trauma, more than any other variable, will contribute to these adverse childhood expressions as they grow and become adolescents and adults. Thank you so much for saying that, Ms. Johnson. Okay.
Just to add to that, that trauma is intergenerational, it's historic, it's collective, and it's individual. So many of the families that we serve suffer from all aspects of trauma. And as a society and as a system, we have to recognize that the system of mass incarceration that happened in the 80s and the 90s are very much reflective in some of the youth we see today, because they did not have their parents or because their parents were traumatized by that system. So we need to acknowledge that and be able to say that that is a part of what we're dealing with. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of our kids who are teens now, their parents are still suffering PTSD from Katrina. You know, so when you say interconnected and interrelated and generational, like we're behind as far as addressing like the trauma that is affecting families. I do see somebody's comment about Maslow, but like people do things, and young people do things out of a need. Some need is not being met, right? And it's up to us to discover what that need is and why they're here and why their parents, or how we can help their parents deal with the trauma that they're experiencing, that is kind of trickling down through all these different generations.
Dr. Hayes, Dr. Parquet, let me turn my video on. We do have a couple of questions, and my apologies if you can hear the grass being cut behind me. But I wanted to read a couple of the questions that we got in the chat. Some of these are specific for Bree and DBI. And I know Bree did answer a couple of those, but there was one that we didn't get an answer to, and it was, do any of the girls at DBI have parents who are in immigration jails or have been deported?
Not yet. But if you have any kids that you can recommend or refer to DBI, we're always looking for more girls. That's our goal right now, to increase our mentees for the next school year by 25 to 50 more mentees in the program. So we're always looking for girls that want to be in our program. Our target is girls who grew up fatherless due to parental incarceration, but we don't turn away girls. I have some girls in the program that has both of their parents that live in the same house, but they want to be in DBI to support their friends because they like the work that we do. So we don't turn girls away. Our target age is from 8 to 18, because I think at the age of 8, you kind of understand, but we have girls as young as 5, and we have a 20-year in the program. So we don't turn girls away. Even if they're at the stage when they feel like they aged out of it, 18, they could be mentors to the younger girls to kind of like help each other. So I think
Okay, thank you.
Question too.
Yeah, there's one in the Q&A about incarcerated grandparents. Does DBI help assist those that have grandparents incarcerated? And I think you mentioned that, but I just wanted to give you.
We have a handful of girls with incarcerated grandparents.
There's a question in the chat for the panelists, and I'm sure you all can read it, but I want to read it aloud so that, you know, for the recording, for the rest of our audience to hear it. But it's, thanks for a great presentation. How do you think that children being in daycare from an early age impacts their development of attachment bonds? And as social workers, should we prioritize advocating for universal childcare or improved maternity leave?
You're muted, Dr. Wright.
Yeah, Dr. Wright, you're muted.
All right, I'm back. Sorry. Yeah, so I mean, I think daycare, early childhood education is essential. I think it's important to the social and emotional development of young children and also cognitive development, right? So I have two godchildren, they're a set of twins. They're growing up in a very privileged household, but they've been out of school, you know, for the past year because of coronavirus, because of COVID-19. We're experiencing a pandemic, and you know, my best friend and her husband was concerned about sending them into daycare, and so they're very behind. Their cognitive development is extremely behind. So they just went back to daycare like a month or two ago, and I mean, their speech has it's like, you know, they're getting back on target very quickly. And so I think daycare is and particularly important to their social and emotional development, because these professionals have markers, and these are the things that they're trying to cultivate. And they are trained in a way that parents are not trained to be able to build that capacity and that skill set. And also for cognitive development purposes, I think it's important. I think, and then the other question was around, I don't remember there was a two parts to it around the importance of it, Carrie.
Yeah, and then it was, as social workers, should we prioritize advocating for universal childcare or improved maternity leave? I would say or
both.
Improved maternity leave.
Yeah, we should be advocating for both. Yeah, in short, that's my response. Yeah, I mean, we want to improve, we want to make sure that everyone has access so that we don't continue to reproduce the disparities that we see currently in the conditions that we're currently living in. So universal childcare is very important that we advocate for that. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Wright. Being in childcare and being around having positive interactions and being around peers is going to help with building resiliency for young people, and you know, who may have been exposed to a not so great paternal attachment or maternal attachment, parental attachment across the board. Being around a positive individual in daycare is going to counteract that. It's going to help to build resilience and help them in the future to have better relationships moving forward.
Yeah, the thing about I want to just add this really quick so that people know, the thing about attachment is you only need one. Like, you need to be able to emotionally connect and attach to one caregiver. And so in the absence of that in the home, if a young person can attach to a family advocate or a teacher or something like that, it's a unique opportunity to bridge that gap.
And so to add to that, Chabre, can you talk about the impact of YEP's after school and summer programs on the young people you serve?
Sure. Yeah, and just along that same line of thinking, having a mentor, an advocate, or somebody who is positive and a consistent force in your life. Like I mentioned before, for the younger age range, even if the kids coming to after school and summer camp are 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, you can still have a positive influence and effect on that young person and counteract the effects of trauma on that young person's brain and development and how they're able to cope moving forward. So they may come to you with a certain level of distress or inability to cope with things that are happening, but the more that they're able to be exposed to other peers, positive peer interaction, the more that they're being able to be exposed to modeling behavior, positive model behavior by an advocate or a mentor, then that's going to further improve their confidence, their self-worth, their ability to communicate, their ability to cope, and all of these things. Hopefully you're going to be able to be brought back into their community or into their home, and hopefully be kind of spread out amongst others and have an impact on that whole unit instead of just that one young person. And it's free for anybody that wants to refer young people.
We have one more question here in the Q&A. This came up as Dr. Wright was speaking and presenting. The question is, with your curriculum development, how did you adjust it to meet the needs of the youth you serve?
Okay, so the question is around adjusting the curriculum to meet the needs of the young people that we serve. So the curriculum was designed specifically with that target population in mind. So we use the 5 social and emotional learning competencies that outlined by CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. So that is self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. And that undergirds, those are the skill sets that we are trying to cultivate in each module or each lesson that's part of the curriculum. But the curriculum, like I said, was designed with New Orleans public education system in mind, recognizing that we needed to build a curriculum that uniquely that was culturally responsive, right? And was designed for children in public schools, children of color in public schools in the city of New Orleans, because we were the ones who were disparately impacted by Hurricane Katrina, which was a mental health disaster, and now COVID-19. So the curriculum was built with that target population in mind that we actually serve. And every time we do an evaluation each year, and we tweak the curriculum as needed based on the feedback from teachers, interviews that we do with teachers and principals and school leaders and stuff like that. So we're constantly making tweaks in our curriculum to make it more relevant for each programming year. And then this summer we are partnering with YEP actually, and we're doing a summer program. So we have done like a truncated version for a summer program. So we're constantly making revisions, making sure that our work is culturally responsive. And yeah. Hope that answers the question. We're not using some of these huge curriculums that you see being implemented in schools and not with fidelity, but like a major issue that you see with those curriculums is that they're not culturally responsive. And so like our niche is that our curriculum is not that. It is actually was created for, children in New Orleans. We have all kinds of like special stuff we do to prepare for Mardi Gras and, so it was designed specifically for children in New Orleans.
Yeah, one quick question. Have you packaged that and sold it to other school systems?
No, we have not. I'm not a business person. I'm a social worker, so I haven't even thought. I think about scaling up and scoping the work all the time, aspirationally, but do I carve out time to think through that? No, I'm too bogged down thinking about being a social worker to even imagine, but I think that's a wonderful idea, and certainly is a possibility for the future. And we've been asked, I think there was a school district in California one time that wanted to meet with us about that, but we have not done that. Our services are grant funded and free, so we don't sell it to the schools. We just provide the service. Yeah.
Just a comment that I make to all of my social work students is that providing culturally relevant, excellent services are not exclusive of also making money. So don't be afraid of that.
True. No, you're right, Dr. Parquet. That require, when I talk about these paradigm shifts, like I need to shift the way I think as well, but I just haven't carved out time to think about it. But I think that's really important. I think it's important for students to start to think about that now, like diverse ways, diverse streams of income as a social worker, recognizing that you don't have to live in poverty to be a social worker, to do social justice work. You should be compensated appropriately, and we need to advocate for higher pay in our profession. So if you can think, you need to start thinking about that while you're in school. It's important. Yeah.
So we need to be looking at NASW to be better advocates for us in our pay scales.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I just want to thank you so much. Much of the feedback that we have in the chat is just that people are so impressed at the three of you who are just phenomenal. I just want to say that each of you, you know, when I met each of you, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be your friend and I'm going to learn from you. And and each of you know that happened because you know smart people when I meet them. I am so happy that you chose to be here and that the three of you were here together. I don't think this panel was excellent. All of you really understand the population you serve. You understand the importance of collaborating with each other, and you understand the importance of having your client be at the focus of what you do. So I really appreciate you. Thank you very much. I'm sure we will have another opportunity such as this to talk more because there's so much more to talk about. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you. People who are here as audience members, feel free to email any of us with any questions. And also understand that your 1.5 CEUs comes with completing the questionnaire. You see this person, Jeremy Parks, on our panel. Jeremy Parks is our student who will be looking at your feedback surveys. And once your feedback surveys are complete, we will send you your certificates, and Carrie needs about a week and a half to 2 weeks to get it all done. Anybody else have anything else, any feedback? Dr. Parquet, any closing words of wisdom?
Just again, we're truly appreciative. Continue this outstanding work. And I'm very, very serious about this. I want you all to draw upon us whenever you need us to assist in this work that you're doing to help support it in a lot of ways. So do not hesitate to do that, to call upon us.
Carrie, there's a question. Will the survey be sent by email?
Yes, it will. And that will be done by tomorrow.
Can I just add, plug. Yep, we'll be looking for some new youth advocates soon. So if anybody is in the market for a job, please check us out. youthempowermentproject.org.
We're hiring too. Navigate NOLA is expanding. We're looking for social workers, and we'll be hiring actually in the fall. So anybody's interested, let us know.
DBI too, we're looking for a part-time office assistant to help to assist with programming, just things around the office. And we're also looking for volunteers for our events and also like internships for the upcoming school year. So
yay, I'm so excited. So thank you guys again. We appreciate you and have a great Thursday afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.